Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on the Real Estate Podcast. I am Todd Sumney, the Chief Industry Officer for HomeSmart International. And today we are going to continue our anonymous interviews with top producing agents who are going to share secrets and tactics and going to tell their story so that you can learn from them so that you can grow your real estate business. That's the purpose of the Real Estate podcast, is to help all of you grow your real estate businesses. And today I am very excited about the two guests that we have. We have a husband and wife team who are both realtors who lately have been just knocking it out of the ballpark. And I'm just so excited for what they're doing in their business, and I can't wait for you to hear their stories. Now, I'll let them tell their story, but they have two very different paths. One has been in real estate longer than the other, and because this is the anonymous series, I'm going to call them Realtor 1 and Realtor 2. I might call it husband or wife at one point to try to let them know who I am talking to on the podcast here, but either way, just so excited about what that they are going to share with all of you today, and you all are in for a treat. So without any further ado, welcome Realtor number 1 and Realtor number 2. How are you today?
Hello, we're doing good.
Yeah, thanks
for having us.
That's awesome. So awesome. All right, so we're going to go back. Here's the general gist of what we're going to try to cover. We're going to go back to the beginning, and we want to talk about when you first got into real estate and what you did to get your businesses off the ground, and specific tactics. How did you start a database? How did you get organized? And what were your transactions like in the first year? And then the one question: what do you wish someone had told you way back when in your first year? What do you wish someone had told you way back when? Then we're going to move into, okay, you started to take your business off. Your business started to take off. At some point, you reached a tipping point, and then we're going to fast forward to what you're doing today, because your business together is, and also separate, is really booming right now. And so we want to talk about what you've done in just the last couple months, what daily tactics you're doing, what does your week look like, what does your month look like, what does your budget look like, all those kinds of things. So does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, and then we're also going to cover all that social media and all those marketing specifics as well. So without any further ado, we'll start with Realtor number 1, who is in the business first. Tell us a little bit about your story. How many years have you been a licensed realtor?
I think I've been a licensed realtor now for 15 years. So I got into the business in 2006 is when I got in. I was 22. I looked like I was probably 15. I owned no real estate at the time, and that was my beginning. So I'd asked my mom what I could do for a living that would make good money and not go to college. And she recommended be a UPS driver or a realtor. I don't know how those go together, but those are my options that I got. And so I went to a real estate school, and then it took me quite a while to pass that real estate test, quite a few times. And then I got into real estate. So the first year, I actually don't think I closed any real estate for my first 6 months. I was told in school, real estate school, that, you probably won't do it. So you probably won't close any deals for your first, few months, 6 months. And so,
right.
I think, that might've been something that I would teach differently. I think that's in real estate school, they tell you that, and then you just feel like that's the truth. So I wish I would have had a different belief system at the time, because I feel that you can do it much quicker. But
love hearing that. I love hearing that.
I think it's something that is told a lot in school, and so you kind of come into the business with that belief system, and then you almost use it as a little bit of an excuse. Now, I'm not saying that it's not hard; it's super hard to get started, but I feel like you can definitely go much quicker. And I think if you're leveraging podcasts and listening to people and trying to learn from their experiences, that you can do it sooner.
I would agree with you, and I think that it comes down to, we have a phrase we use a lot: work smarter, not harder. And I think it's that if you know the right things and you start doing the smarter things first, that you're going to have traction and you can get results.
Yeah.
So I love hearing that.
It was 2006. I think I'd been a realtor for 6 months, and I had no closed transaction. Interestingly enough, my first transaction, which I was thankful for, was actually a listing. which usually isn't the first piece of business that you do, sitting at someone's kitchen table and telling them what you're going to charge them.
Right.
And what was really awesome about that is, this person, I looked very young, and it was my first transaction. They didn't know that, but it just goes to show you that I think in doing this for 15 years, I probably had one or two people that have ever asked me like how many transactions I've ever did.
Right.
But that's another like limiting belief that we have in our mind, that, someone like realistically is going to ask you how much business you did when you're first starting. So 6 months in, first deal was a listing, and I sold that in 14 days. And that was really cool to learn the listing side of the business first, because I realized like the leverage right there, that was, if you could go pick and choose what you wanted in this business, it was definitely listings, because you could, do a lot more with your time, or sell a lot more and not spend as much time as a buyer. So I was super thankful for that. And then in that 14 days that I had that sign up, I got a sign call. And that's when I learned what sign calls were. And this was 2006. So this was really before you got a lot of online leads. And I'm sure people were doing it, but I definitely wasn't. And so sign calls for several years there were like the online lead. It was gold. It was solid. Like if somebody called off your sign, that was business. And so I got like 2 calls off that sign while it was up, and one of them went and bought a house. So my first deal was a listing, and then my first buyer was off of that listing. So I learned really quick that, if you get a listing, you can leverage that. People are going to actually call your phone. Closed that guy, helped him buy a house. And then, I only closed 6 transactions in 2006. So that was my first year. So, and I didn't close one for the first 6 months. So really, I closed one a month after that. I think just once you, do a deal, especially a listing, then get a buyer from it, I think you just get traction, you get confidence. And then from there, you just realize that you can do it. Then in 07, I did 6 deals. So I didn't really go accomplish much more. So interesting that I did 6 deals my first year and didn't start until the last half of the year. And then in 07, all I did is 6. So I was doing one every 2 months. So nothing stellar there, but still I had come from doing construction, and I wasn't making that much money. So at the time, not having a family, really any bills, 6 deals actually at the time could keep me afloat. So I felt like I was doing good. It now makes me look back and think that, really your expenses at home are really what makes or breaks a realtor. If you close 6 deals and you have no expenses or you're debt free, you can live a good life. If you close 6 deals and have 130,000 in bills a year, it can get a little stressful. So it kind of gave me perspective of, how many deals you're doing might not sound good to one person or another. It all comes down to like how much you have going out the door every month.
Exactly. That's why I do think that it is so important to watch those expenses, especially early on, and really, watch your spending and just be smart about it.
And so at that time, I mean, the only expenses I really had during those, it's gotten a little bit more pricey these days with some of our systems, but at that time, I think all I had was a CRM system. I believe at the time I used Wise Agent, and I still do to this day.
Okay.
And I think they went up like $2 over the last 15 years on what they charge them up. And
awesome.
That's just the best. I think that's the one thing that I have a lot of people reach out to me that are like, hey, I'm going to go to real estate school. Like, what could you help me with? And I always tell them, hey, you can't sell real estate while you're in real estate school, but you could get your business up and running. So I had a past client call me a few weeks ago, and his wife wants to get into real estate. And I said, hey, so you're gonna have a month or 2 of getting this license. So instead of getting your license and starting all this stuff, why don't you start all this stuff? And when you hit when you get your license, you're actually ready to roll. So, I just went over with her and said, hey, why don't you, what I want you to do today is, or over the next few days is, take a spreadsheet and write down think of everybody that who lives in Arizona. Don't even think of like what their phone number is. Don't think of their email address. Just write, like, just in your spreadsheet, think of everybody You'll probably come up with 100, 200 people. And I said, when you get that done, call me. And like 3 days later, she texted me and said, hey, I got that done. I said, okay, now let's find out like what their addresses are and maybe their phone numbers. Let's add that. And then a few days later, she said she had that. And then now I said, hey, now get Wise Agent, $24.95 a month or whatever it is. Now start putting them in there. And, you hear from realtors a lot. It's like, oh, I got everybody on my phone, and that's good. And you do have everybody in your phone. It's the fact that, when you need to go print out mailers or mass email somebody, we do have all the numbers in our phone. It's just we can't mass email people from our phone. We can't print out labels quickly from our phone. So we can't really keep notes on people. So that's really the biggest thing I think when starting out, is just having a CRM, a place where you keep all your contacts. I think the thing most people are always wondering is, what CRM does one agent use over another? And, that's the thing where no specific CRM is going to do the trick. They all do the same thing. They store contacts and they leverage your contacts to, mail them, mass email them. But people are thinking like, hey, I got to go pick the right one. And it's not really the right one. Just start with one, run with it. And I picked Wise Agent because it was cheap. It was easy. It was simple. And we really haven't changed much as far as putting our network in a system. So
it just as one little added note, Wise Agent has a great 14-day concierge program where they really help you once you engage with them over those first 14 days in a row. They have somebody literally calling you every day to help you really get in there and get it off the ground, because most agents do think they overthink it. They make it too complicated and they never get started.
Well, and they're the best. I don't do it anymore, but I mean, when I was when I was trying to get this up and running, I would email them at like 1 a.m. and have a question, and they literally would call you. And I actually sat on a plane one time with the owner of that company coming back from a conference from Austin. And I actually overheard him talking to somebody about that strategy. And like, that was to just, he knew that agents were going to be spending their time usually at late at night trying to get their businesses up and running. So like, that's what he valued, and
Brandon is a great man. And
that's I overheard his conversation, but it was just really interesting to hear his philosophy on like helping agents out when they need it. And sometimes it's at 1 a.m.
Exactly.
And so the CRM was probably our biggest thing. I mean, that's not going to be just the trick. I mean, you obviously have to have good relationships with these people, but that's definitely a way to put them all in one spot and see it.
Yep.
And then from there, it's just, for the first few years, it was, just meeting people and not just meeting people, but putting them into a system, and which was Wise Agent. What I felt decent at is I went to a conference early on, and they had just said, hey, you got to figure out how to stay in touch with these people. And, I just looked at it like that. I'm like, what do we do? And I'm not much of I don't really like to call people that much. I'm not very salesy. I don't really call anybody and ask for referrals or anything like that. So I thought, hey, what can I do to get in front of these people monthly? So we've been doing monthly postcards that just show all the homes that we're selling. And we've been doing that for years. And I think people can even overthink that. Like we print our stuff in mass just so we can get better postcard cost. And I mean, probably for 4 months out of the year, we have all the same homes on the same. I mean, we don't even change the homes because we're buying in bulk.
Right.
And I always, people overthink that. I think I got to change this every month. And no, we don't do that. And,
in marketing, we call that frequency. It's frequency. The more frequent, the more important. Each time it's another exposure, and each frequency builds more awareness. And so you don't need to overthink it and make it too complicated. We often use the phrase in the marketing team, keep it simple and do more. 90% perfect and 100% done is better than 100% perfect and never done, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we typically change our postcards quarterly. So I mean, on any given month for the 3 months consecutively, they'll get the same postcard. And our thoughts are, if they're looking close enough at it to notice they're the same postcard, we're doing our job, and they're actually reading what we're saying. So, I think, it actually works out. And I think a lot of people they overthink it, and they think they got to put out fresh new stuff all the time. And it's not, it's just getting out there. And obviously we do update it, quarterly with what we do. But it's, sending it out is more important, like you said, Todd.
And we were very clear with what we were trying to accomplish at the time. I wanted people to, I had a thing when I started. I always wanted people to, and this probably started about 2008, is I wanted people to know I sold real estate. But I realized quickly that, there'd be some people that I would talk to, and they'd be like, oh, I'm going to use my brother who's never sold real estate. And I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. Like, as I started growing some traction in the business where I had, success, I'd realize, like, I'd talk to people and they would be like, oh, I got to use the person who was in my church or my brother or whatever. And I would look them up and I would see, like, hey, they did very little business. And that's when it made me realize that people are actually more inclined to use their network because they're like, they would be nervous to go tell their friends like, or their realtor friend, like, hey, I bought a house and I didn't use you. So we realized quickly, like we actually wanted to be people's friends. And this is very genuine when I say it, but we wanted people to like know we were people first and then we were realtors second. And we did that through probably about 2008. I started doing like personal stuff. Like I would just send random stuff out to people like Starbucks gift cards and just box of brownies. And I would just take my like 50, 60, 70 contacts that I had that were like my core network and just send them stuff, you know? And that's where that I think went well. And then the referrals just started coming in from there. In 08 is when I finally went from 6 deals to 16 deals. So that's the first year I started seeing some traction. And, 16 I thought was, at the time, I thought it was a lot. Now that looks like a month. But I mean, in 08, that was really, I thought I had made it. And 09, we did 21 transactions. And 10, it was like, in 2010, it was like 36. And 10 was the first year I think I got and this is kind of where people can see where things come and go and markets go up and down. But in 2010, I believe was the year I got an REO account. And for anyone who's new, they wouldn't probably remember what that is, but that's like foreclosure. So that was an interesting year because I was getting some listings from the bank. Now, as I say, I had an REO account. I didn't sell a lot, but that was the first year where I got 10 listings from a bank and they said, hey, go sell these houses for us. And so that's probably why I went from 21 to 36 was from that one relationship that I established with the bank.
Right.
And that was the year that I got a buyer's agent and I realized, and there's these thermostats that you go through in business. So in 2010, we did 36 transactions and I had a buyer's agent that probably did like 9 of those transactions. And that was the first year that I really started to understand leverage. Like, hey, people got to start helping. And it also now it's a thermostat thing. So now 36 I could do on my own, hands down, no transaction coordinator and no marketing, nothing. So it just shows you like over time, like when I went from 21 to 36, I thought I was the busiest I could ever be. And now that would be like as slow as I could ever be. So it just shows you like over time, even though you might be stressed out in this business, you learn to just finally like grow into it.
Right.
Your habits start to form around it. You start realizing what you can and can't do. You got to start saying no to more things. And just over time, you like really like, your thermostat goes up where you're emotionally, I think, and just physically able to handle it. And then, so yeah, that was the year in 2010, buyer's agent foreclosure business started coming in. And then in 2011, it was like, 28 transactions. And then from there, from 2012 to like 2019, it's just pretty much been at a consistent, like, 40 deals a year.
Awesome.
And that was, and what was cool about it is those were all referrals. So it wasn't until this year, and we'll get into that a little bit later. And then we'll bring Brittany, cause she's been a huge part of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, for those times, like, it was kind of a slow and steady thing, but, I think we learned so much and we really honed in on building our referral base. Now, even before I jumped in, to help out, I was still helping out kind of behind the scenes, even when I had my other job,
Right.
Before I got into real estate full time. And, our biggest thing was, how do we make this the best client experience possible? And that was really our mission, because like he had mentioned before is, it's people first. We're people first, and these are relationships we're building. And second, is our relationship with them being a realtor, but we're people first. So, during the whole process, we're really careful about every single step and making sure that our clients feel knowledgeable and comfortable and they know the whole process, and making that whole client experience really just next level.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different parts in the transaction where you can really shine. And, for you, I think as a realtor, it's sometimes easy to feel overwhelmed by, the day-to-day of it. But we have to keep in mind, even though we see it every single day, our clients, this is a once every maybe 10 years purchase for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's important to make them feel heard and they feel comfortable with every step. So I think in those these last maybe 6 years or so, that's what we put intentionally our focus on is, how do we make this the best client experience that, these people could have, and that where they would, like willingly go and tell their family and friends, like, this was so easy, or we just had the best time. And, we really felt like this was something that, we thought it was going to be difficult, and, we worked with them, and it wasn't. It was really easy and fun. So that's what we really try to put a focus on. And we do several different things during the transaction to help make them feel that way.
That's why I love this interview series, because I hear the same consistent themes over and over again when I talk to the agents that really have solid, booming, growing businesses. And those themes that you're talking about come out: relationships, people, serving, giving, providing information. I'm here to help, helpful, just the empathetic, empathy of wanting to take care of people. I hear that coming through in your voices and in your story. And I also know, because I've watched you, that speaks volumes. So
and that's super, like, that's our biggest thing. Like when we get out now on calls in the morning, with the few of us on it. And that's my biggest thing, is just making everyone realize that, like, this is, like, we give these people all of our energy. Like, this is when we sign up, I'm giving them our all. Like, you got things you need to do in your personal life and things like that. But, like, we're in a market right now where houses sell in like 4 minutes.
Right.
So, like, I'm like, when you sign up with people, like, it's hard to tell them, like, hey, I'm taking the day off while you lose your dream house. And so we serious. And
right.
Yeah, Brittany's right. Like, we've had, and one other thing when you say systems, so, like, as we were growing, we were very, very systematic with spreadsheets. So, like, we've always had spreadsheets in our business. One for our finances, it's very detailed, and one was for our, like, process. So we have, like, listing checklist and buyer checklist, and those are super detailed. I mean, it's not just like, earnest money needs picked up. It's like, what
do you use the Excel files to do that, or do you use the Wise Agent? Because Wise Agent has those as well, right? Or
they do. They do. And I use Wise Agent more of just literally, like, it's a database that holds my stuff. I don't really do much out of it outside of that. My brain thinks more spreadsheety. So I need to see everything, like, all at once instead of things being behind stuff in a computer.
But here's the thing. That's okay. Yeah. That is okay. I hear from agents all the time about how powerful Excel is, or a spreadsheet program, whatever spreadsheet program you're using, because it's so fast and easy.
It's more of, like, because we kept it, we know the real estate process, really good, but it was more of, like, so that and now that we have our assistant, like, we literally have the emails written that, like, go out, like, when it says, like, earnest money email, and she sends that out. And then we know at what time we send, like, right after the appraisal, when she checks the box appraisal, she has to send out the appraisal email. And that's, like, it's an email that has all the city's utility links where they can transfer their utilities. And it has a link in there to change their, mailing address with the USPS, and, how the final walkthrough is going to go. And so it's like, we're looking at this from their point of view, like, where are their hangups going to be? And so after you do enough transactions, you realize, like, everyone has almost the same exact questions. So, and when they're going to be, so why not just send them something that's going to, like, we're just thinking of it like, hey, they're going to ask us this in 6 days. We know that. So let's get this over to them now. And then we always feel like if we're giving them answers before it's even a problem for them, they don't even go around it. There's already enough things in the transaction that we can't control that cause hiccups, that we want anything that we can be in control of. Like, we want them to know, like, hey, we're solving this before you even thought of it.
Right. Okay. So pulling out golden nuggets real quick for the audience. Obviously a CRM and a database right out of the gate, and very, very crucial to your business. Obviously you have a cell phone. At some point along the way, you started to get a website, social media accounts. We can talk about that in a minute, but Excel has been another tool, something that you've used over and over. And I heard you say that you're capturing, your verbiage, content. Once you have that letter written that goes out after they get earnest money, you don't have to recreate it from scratch every single time. You have it systematized. You have the letter written, when it's supposed to go out, and you just use it over and over again. The same with your postcards, et cetera.
Absolutely.
And then so some other marketing that we do that people might be interested. Once a year, we probably started this in 2010, but once a year we send out a letter, and it's got a magnet, and our magnet looks just like our business card. And it just tells the people how they can send us referrals. It says, hey, this is how many transactions we did last year, or something like that. And these are the 7 scenarios that you might run into this year that you could refer us business. And it just says like all 7 things, like, somebody's downsizing, somebody's upsizing, you hear somebody relocating, somebody getting a divorce, somebody, a death in the family. We're letting them know like what those 7 or 8 things are that you might hear that we might be able to enter in and help people out. So once a year that letter goes out, it rarely changes. It's kind of the same letter every year with a magnet. And what's cool about that is like I go into some of my clients' houses and you'll see like 5 or 6 magnets on their fridge. And it's really nice to see that some people actually like save them. We're very realistic to know that probably 70% of people throw them away, and we're fine with that. So we do that letter once a year. We do postcards every month. And then we used to do birthday cards back in the day. I have to say we don't do those anymore. But if I was first starting out and had more time, I would 100% still do that. And then we do New Year's cards every year. And I think some people, they start thinking of the cost too much. They'll be like, oh, that's going to cost me, $250, $300. And that's where I think, people really go wrong, is they don't realize that they have to, that $300 go a long way. It's built our business for sure. So, I mean, if you've got to skip like 3 meals going out a month to get to that, I 100% would do that. I would cancel those going out and drinking coffees to invest in your business if you have to.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So let's talk planning and goals for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
When did you really at some point start to set goals, or do you, and, kind of put some planning and then really march to that? Do you do that every year? Is that something that you did?
Absolutely. We do that every year. And this kind of goes into like my story as well. So, when I joined in real estate with him, he has always been a goal setter from day one. I mean, he always has written down his goals, business plans, probably on a, if not nightly basis, definitely a weekly basis. We're looking over our numbers all the time. And even before I joined in real estate, we'd look it over together and see where there was room for improvement. However, when I joined, it's been a little over a year now since I left my last career and joined in real estate. And we obviously do a business planning for the upcoming year. Probably start in October doing that. We kind of think about, how many people we'd like to help for the next year, what our numbers, our goals for our sales volume are, how much it is for units. And, we work all the numbers backwards. So that is definitely something that we do every single year. Then we also break it down, by month and then by week. And we have a goal board in our office of all of our units we want to hit, and then also our sales volume. We track where we should be on a week-to-week basis to know whether or not we're on track to make that goal. And we talk about it all the time. I mean, it's a constant conversation in our house. And I think when you make it part of your daily life, that's when it really, truly comes to life. If you're setting aside a time, maybe once a year, to only talk about it and never tracking it as you go, I mean, you don't know how to self-correct. So I think it's important to, have it be a living, breathing conversation, and, really track your numbers weekly to see where you're going. And what you can do to improve it. Or let's say you're ahead of schedule, you kind of know, hey, maybe I can relax. We're not really that type, but you can definitely go that way too. So
okay, so then hand in hand, budgets kind of go with planning to with goals, et cetera, too.
Correct.
How do you handle the monetary spends? How do you choose how much to spend?
Yeah,
what to spend it on?
So we've been super, super lean. If you want to go from like 2006 to probably 2018, we probably didn't spend more than gas was my biggest expense in the company. So that just shows you right there. I think we spent probably $1,500 a month, if that, on any types of systems. So, we were getting, 40 referrals a year, not spending probably more than probably not even more than 1,000, and that's including gas. So
right.
We've just been always very, very lean. I didn't sign up for a lot of stuff. Now, to kind of fast forward, last year, I believe we did, probably 40 transactions or so, where this year, I think we've already did 54 with our pendings right now. So you can see where, this year is where we,
woo!
Yeah. So we're excited. We'll probably close at about, 90, I think. And so we've stepped up a little bit. We can go we're still heavy referral. We always, so at the beginning of this year, to go back to goal setting, so at the beginning of this year, we thought, we're doing 40 transactions a year and they're all referrals. So it's super easy. We don't have to follow up with leads, and that's great. And we knew those were always going to keep coming in, but we wanted to do 100 transactions a year. And it's hard to get more referrals from your network. Your network organically grows with you. You can't force it to do anything. So, you can see we're from 2006, we closed 6 deals, to last year, we probably closed 40. So your network grows with you and they refer you as you get more past clients. So we thought, well, what are we going to do if we want to go from 40 to 100, what do we do? And I think that's where goal planning comes in, is just writing down, what are the realities? What can we do? We can do open houses. We can do online leads. We can do Zillow. We can do pay-per-click. We can hold a sign on the side of the road and ask for business. We can cold call.
Right.
We can circle prospect. We can knock doors. So we just write down. It's okay, we have 20 options we can do. And then I had to go with what's in my personality. And I'm not a cold caller for sure. And there's a lot of things that I'm hey, at first I'm going to what am I not going to do? And then interestingly enough, we were hey, let's pay for some Zillow leads. And we got into Zillow right before they actually switched their program to, what they would call now their referral system.
Right.
And 1 month before they did that, we paid for leads, I think probably $1,500. We said, we'll pay for leads in a certain part of town. And the next month they're hey, we're not doing that anymore. We're just going to give you a certain amount of leads and we want a referral fee on the back end. And so that probably started at the beginning of this year. And that's been part of our going from 40 to, 60 or wherever we're at now. So that was good. I mean, we do pay them a referral fee, but it's a good business relationship we're in with them. But what's important about that is, at the beginning of the year, we said we're only doing 40 transactions, which is great. We want to do more. We wrote down what more looked like. And we knew that we needed about 50 more transactions coming in from some other avenue, because we already knew we were going to get 40 referrals a year. And so that was one thing we integrated. And then, so that's done well. And then we also started doing pay-per-click through our website. So we use a company, our website's through a company called Real Geeks. And we pay for that website monthly, but then we also pay a company to drive traffic to that website. So, I mean, we now spend, as of August 1st, we're going to be spending a few $1,000s a month driving more traffic to that, because we've already seen good ROI. Now, I don't handle that. I have an agent that I pay for the leads to come in. He handles that specifically, just those pay-per-click online leads through Real Geeks. And, we do pretty well with that. So we see a good ROI on our money there. And we also aren't involved anything with that transaction. So it's more of a buyer's agent involved. And, as of today, we've got a few more people that are joining to start handling us with our Zillow leads. But I want to be straightforward. I mean, as of now, the listeners couldn't get into a Zillow account. That's not how it works anymore.
Right.
But I don't want people to hear that story and think of the excuse on why they couldn't get there. I mean,
well, in some areas of the country that hasn't rolled out yet. So,
well, there you go. Yeah. So that's just in a few areas, it's the way it is. But
right.
So if somebody's listening now, they might want to look at the future and project it. That's the way it's going. Right. And then second, we still have online leads that people can definitely, if they want to pay to play and convert online leads, it's there.
Right. Have you tried any of the other programs that are referral based, like say UpCity or some of the other referral networks, Referral Exchange, any of those things? Have you done any of those?
Nope. So we're we got 3 legs to our business. It's repeat and referrals. We've got our Zillow account, and then we've got our pay-per-click leads. Those are our only 3 we do.
Awesome. All right, then let's fast forward. Let's talk response time.
Yeah.
You get a lead. You get something on one of those Zillow or pay-per-click or whatever, or even referral. What's response time like? What processes go into action? What happens?
Yeah, so response time is instant. Literally, unless we're in an appointment, we're answering that call. So, the Zillow and the pay-per-click come in slightly different, as far as, Zillow, sometimes we get an actual live call. Our pay-per-clicks, however, it's in our process to call within 10 minutes of that lead coming in. We want to, find out, how we can help. Is there any properties you would like to tour? And that also translates over to our Zillow. So, our biggest thing is getting the meeting. And it's not, we're not qualifying them over the phone right now. We're not asking them a huge needs list. It's really just, how can I best serve you in this moment? Is there a house that you're interested in that you want to go tour today? And that's really what our main goal is. And it's in those first, 10 minutes that happens. Now, obviously, the reason why our team is growing is because we're only 2 people, right? So we can't always answer every single call, nor can we always make every other meeting. But, I think it's important to we're hungry still. So you got to be hungry and you got to be ready to go on those.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that, like we could have just sat back and said, hey, 40 referrals a year. That's really good. But we just knew that we wanted more. And to go back to your goal setting, I have to say that I think that that's probably I think that's the biggest thing you see with agents that are successful is they like truly know, people will say like, what's your big why? And, you can ponder on that your whole life trying to figure that out. I just straight up was like, what do I want to accomplish? And so we've always wanted to buy rental properties. And so we kind of stay focused with that. Like if we can close X amount of deals this year, we can buy X amount of rental properties. And that for the last probably 4 or 5 years is what really obviously I love helping people buy and sell real estate, but those are the things that when I'm thinking what am I doing this for my family? It's to, make profits, to invest them so that I can one day eventually retire.
Right.
So that's to go to your goal setting. I think that's truly the most important thing is what are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to do with this money? And if you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you would do with that, then I don't know if you really can even get through the days that are tough. Because our biggest challenges as of right now are just having people to actually service these leads. So to answer your question on how do we respond to these people. So on the Real Geeks leads, which are our pay-per-click leads, we have someone do it for us, but he knows what his, he's supposed to get to him quickly. And sometimes he's in a meeting and can't, but he does his best. And on the Zillow leads, we have to get to those leads. We're held highly, highly, highly accountable. And if you don't keep your scores at a certain level, you're on. Well, that's what we're hiring for now is more people to handle that because that account can grow as big as we can handle. So the more agents we bring on, the more leads they're going to give us. And then our referrals, that one's simple. Those usually come to us via text. Most people just text us and say hey, my coworker wants to buy a house or whatever, family member, and they just give us their number. We text them, line up a time, we call them.
Yeah, but the same thing with that too is it's instant. The second you wait, you're letting more opportunities slip by for someone else to do a better job than you. So, I think the biggest compliment that we usually receive in our reviews is that, we're very, very quick to respond and, that we, make them feel heard. So I think that's important, to make your client feel we have a saying in our office, our biggest thing is to make every one of our clients feel like they are our only clients, and it's kind of, fun to treat them that way because it just really makes them feel, heard. And that's what everyone wants to feel is heard.
And we learned the speed the lead thing, or I did at least during the sign call era. I remember when I had a buyer's agent, I would say, hey, if they call me off that sign, if they call me off my sign and we don't get back to them in 1 minute, and this was when we probably had 26,000 listings on the market or something like that. I mean, there was 6 signs on every street. So I was like, if we don't call them back when they call our sign, they keep driving down the road. And if we don't catch them before they catch the other person's sign. So I always visually thought of that, like a client or a buyer driving down a road and calling me. And that was our opportunity. If we didn't answer, they're not our friends. You know what I mean? They're not going to leave us a voicemail. So they just would drive down the road and call them the next one. So it was whoever was going to answer that call and talk to that person was who was going to do business with them. So, that many sign calls anymore now that the internet's around, but we treat it, the online leads to me are the same thing. They're people that they're virtually driving down a road wanting a house and they're just waiting for someone to pick up. And the hard part of that business for most realtors is, and even myself, is your conversion rate. We convert probably 95% of our referrals to a deal. That's, it's simple, it's fun. But when you're getting 100 leads a month via pay-per-click, you just got to realize you're in a business where if you spend $1,000 to get 100 leads and close one transaction, and that makes you $10,000, like 99 people not answering their phone or hanging up or whatever, like if you just can get to that one person, you have a great ROI. It takes a certain type of person that knows they're going to contact 100 people back in 1 month, and only one person's going to transact with them. But I think if you can get past it, don't take it personal, and you're just, you're trying to run a business, at that point, you're fine.
Awesome. This has been so full of great insight and tactics. And what I want to do here real quick, I want to rifle through a couple quick things, just because I know that you have a hard stop because you've got an appointment to go sell some more business. So I love the underlying, you're serving, you're helping people. That comes through in every answer. I just commend you. That's awesome. But let's talk social media. I know you said you have 3 legs. I just want to know how social media fits into that and all your different social media accounts. I want to talk about listing and buyer appointments. Just what's the secret of that, what you do quickly on that, then leveraging listings. You were talking about you have the sign in the yard. How do you leverage that into more business? And then lastly, what does your day look like right now? What does a week look like? Like literally some tactics, like, what do you do? Do you time block? I get up at 5 a.m. every day. This is what I do. I do this, or I get up at 10 a.m. every day. I golf, and then, whatever it is, I just want to know. So those are my things real quick. So social media, how's it fit in?
Social media, we both have Facebook accounts. We both also have Instagrams. And from the very beginning, we're very particular about what we post on there. It's very intentional. We share our personal life, and we also share our business life. And we like to do almost equal posts, if not even a little slightly more on the personal side. Our stuff comes through very organic. I feel, it doesn't feel like it's, constant ads. Usually what we'll do is, we've even in the past, I'll have to admit, these last couple of months we've been pretty busy, so it's been a little bit slow on our social media as far as us posting. But we like to tell the stories behind the transaction. So hey, this was so and so. They contacted us this way, and look at them now. Like now they're owning a home, or he was 21 and he bought his first home. We kind of tell the stories behind the transactions, and we're very intentional about what we post on there. We put a lot of thought into it, and we also try to not crazily rock the boat too much either, if that makes sense. So we're just about, I would say, 60% personal, 40% business on there. But we try for it not to be salesy, and just organically share our day sometimes throughout the process.
Right. Yeah. So it's just that, and anything that's ever been business for me, it's usually super organic. Like I don't think I've ever been the one to really say like, hey, do you know of anybody buying or selling real estate? That's never been my style. I did it through success stories. I thought, hey, like I would rather give this buyer props for buying a house and he's 22 like, hey, I just helped this guy buy a house. He's 22, and show a picture of him in front of a house. I've always thought like stories will get you business. Asking for business doesn't necessarily. Or the one I throw out a lot when I want to do a humble brag is like when we do the awards every year, I get the picture, whatever diamond I am. And, I'll throw out on my Facebook, like, hey, we got this diamond this year. This is all thanks to you guys, our past clients who refer us business. We thank you for everything. So they're always like very like organic, like they're not asking people for business, or I'll show a really cool house and just take a photo and say like, showing this house. So like people know I'm a realtor, but I'm not asking them for business. And I mean, we probably receive at least 2, if not 3 transactions a year through that. Not, once again, might not sound like a lot, but when you can like source, $24,000 or whatever a year coming from somebody who went to school that you don't know their number, but they message you, you're doing something right. Like I just helped, I actually closed today on a house, a kid who went to my high school, and he reached out to me probably about a year ago, but we just accomplished what he wanted. But he said, hey, I wanted to call you because obviously we went to school together, but I know you buy rental properties and I want to buy a rental property. So like, I never once went out on Facebook and was like, hey, does anybody want to buy a rental property? They just see me living that life of like, I post when I buy a rental property. And
right.
So I think just like people see your story and they either want to be involved in it or not. And I think what's happening for most people is they don't want to be involved in your story. Like you're giving them like, I had one probably 2 years ago, a girl from high school reached out to me that I hadn't contacted since then. And when I closed on the transaction, she said, hey, I have a friend who's a realtor, but I've seen your post over the years and you're always very uplifting. You're always very positive. And it was real. Like I left there with the biggest smile because like we intentionally designed our social media that way that like no one wants to know like if my AC went out in my car or my pool pump doesn't work anymore. I was like, that's not what they're going for. Now don't get me wrong. You still want to be raw and natural, but I just didn't want to use it as a venting session for people. When I read that from people, I don't necessarily, it doesn't come off the right way. I like hearing of people, talk about what's going on good.
Okay. So how many posts a day though?
Dude, like how many a month is the question? I mean, once every 3 weeks, maybe.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. All right. I gotcha.
So we've I've always like had intentions to do more, but to me, it's an organic thing. The second that my assistant even emails me, I think once a week, because I tell her to like post a post, and it's got to be organic for me. The second that I don't feel natural doing it, I don't. So I'll probably never be the one to develop a business plan that says like post once a day. At that point, it's being forced. I won't say the right things. I'll feel pressured, and then I'm going to say something stupid. So with that, because I got a lot of thoughts, but I just do it when it feels right, and then that's the time that I feel it needs to be.
That's good advice, though. That's good advice. All right, let's talk listing, buyer appointments. Quick, golden nugget.
For a buyer appointment?
Listing appointments, buyer appointments. What do you do? Any secrets there? Any secrets you wish someone would have told you way back when?
I think it's just game planning. Like, for example, I had a client call me the other day, and it's like, hey, I really think it's being lost, and I'll go two ways with this. Is this lady called me and she wants to sell her house and buy a new house. Well, she has a really nice house and wants to buy a nicer house. So sitting at her kitchen table and trying to walk her through this process right now of like, hey, you're going to sell your home in one day, and then you're not going to find a house because there's not a lot out there. And being able to consult her through that process of what we're going to have to do. And that's hard. And I think that would be probably the biggest challenge for especially a new realtor right now, is sitting down with someone at their kitchen table and trying to tell them how they're going to navigate this process. So I have formal presentations, but I actually rarely ever bring them out. I'm more of I got a legal pad usually with me and a calculator at my presentations. And I'm the guy who's like, hey, what's your loan payoff on this house? And I'm like, oh, I owe 208. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's worth probably 300. What's your mortgage payment on this? Okay. What do you want your mortgage payment to be on the next house? How much are you putting down from this house toward your next house? And those numbers all like, if they just answer about 5 or 6 questions, I know exactly what's up. I can do the math and be like, okay, they're going to walk away with $56,000. You said your mortgage payment's $1,300. You don't want it to be more than $1,600. We're putting this down on the next house. I can almost back in that right there at their kitchen table and be like, okay, if you're putting that down on the next house and your interest rate was, 3.1%, this is probably roughly what you're going to be able to buy. Where do you want to live? And then they give that to me, and then I pull it up right there, and they're like, and I think what people love the most is when I pull up the area for them and they're like, hey, Chris, there's no houses in that area I want to live in for $290. And I'm like, you said it, not me. So what do we want to do next? I'm like, is that really where you want to live? So now do you even want to sell your house? And I think as realtors, we've got to get to a spot where like, we got to do what's best for them. Like, so I have some clients that I sit down over all those numbers and they're like, hey, like we don't see anything in the area we want to live in. And I'm like, well, why do we need to get there? And if there's not a lot of need to get there, then you might just want to sit tight. Or, hey, if you want to live in this area and it's not the price point you can afford, then we can go like 5 miles that way and you can get a house. And I think it's just really like sitting down and consulting them with a calculator. And that's probably the hardest thing for people to do because it's more bottom line conversations that I like to have with them.
Right.
And I tell them as we go through this process, there might be a point in this where you decide like, hey, I don't want to do this. And talking to them makes them realize that you're not trying to sell them a home. You're trying to consult them and game plan with them. And you're just doing the best for them.
That's playing the long game. And but I mean, it's not a game. That's doing the right thing. And that's serving customers. So great approach and great advice. And it's obvious that's why your business is taking off, because you're putting the client's needs first. You're just
we get to a point where I think in the last few months, I've told several people not to sell their house when I sat down with them. And they're like, why? And I'm like, because I asked you how much money you had in your bank. And you said you literally have enough for a down payment on the house you want and extra reserves. So why wouldn't you just keep this? Your mortgage payment's $1,200. I can rent it out for $1,800. So if we go buy a house, I'll help you rent it for virtually free. And then I'll find your renter for you. You'll have to manage it yourself. But I mean, I have two I can think of off the top of my head right now that I met with that they called me to sell their house and buy a new one. And
That's awesome.
Own a new house and they have an investment property. And I can speak that language with them because I 100% believe it because I do it in my own life as far as buying rentals. So I think they see that, they know, like they can tell that that's my passion. So I'm trying to get them to a point where they have wealth in their life. Like I tell them, hey, I can make 9 G's off selling your house, but
right.
I would rather you make 7,200 profit a month for the rest of your life. And then I know at that point, like they're going to give me every referral they ever known. So some people can get way too short-sighted. Like, you talked yourself out of a $9,000 commission. I'm like thinking in my head, no, I didn't. Like they're going to come back to me forever.
Right.
Going to refer to all their family and friends because they know I'm going to straight up tell them the truth. And I think it's when you're willing to walk away from something and just do honestly what's the right thing, whether there's no dollar amount attached to it. Like that's when people see that you're pure and they know that they need everyone they know to use that person.
That's awesome. All right. So speaking of wealth, I just got to put in a plug. Are you guys using HomeBot? Have you tried it? Have you even looked at it?
No.
Go into the agent marketplace right now, Real Smart Agent. On the left-hand column, you got your nav bar, you got transactions, marketing, etc. You click down at the bottom, there's the agent marketplace. It says marketplace. Click in there, go check out HomeBot. It's a tool that is exactly what you were just talking about helping your homeowners realize the wealth in their own home and even potentially turning into investors. So you got to go check it out. Watch the webinar on HomeBot.
Yeah.
But hey, I know you only got a couple minutes left, so I want to ask you one last question then. What does your day look like? What does your week look like? What,
That's a fun question.
That's a can of worms, my man.
I know, but you got to do it quick, okay? I want you to do it in under 2 minutes, but like 3 minutes. Just tell me a little bit. What do you do, like regimented? Like what are the things you can't do without?
So one thing we can't do without is our team meeting call in the morning. And lately we've been doing it via Zoom since we have some, working from home. So our team meeting call in the morning, we go through a rundown of all of our active buyers, our active listings, upcoming buyers, upcoming listings. We talk through all of our pending deals so that everybody has an idea of where we're at. Because, it's important that we don't get lost in the weeds every day and forget about a transaction, or more importantly, forget about people that, you said you were supposed to call back. So I think that morning team meeting helps us, stay all accountable. And I think it really, helps set your mindset for the day and make sure that you're doing the most important top priority thing that day for your clients.
Yeah. And when we talk about our Zoom call in the morning, we both have our own clients, but we step in a lot. Like, hey, I can't go show this person because I just got a new lead. Can you go show them? So we still have like our own clients, but we do flip flop a lot just based on our day or who we think's better at that specific thing. So our assistant that works directly with us, between us two, agent one and agent two, and our assistant, we're all on the same page with all of our transactions. Now, any of our team's transactions, they're on our spreadsheet, but like our team members aren't necessarily on that meeting. They kind of all take care of their own transactions themselves. So when we're talking like our group meeting in the morning, it's just agent one, agent two, us, and our assistant. And between us three, we're a collective, like, hey, how are we going to get all 16 or 17 of these pendings to the next step? And some days, like, I'm full and I'm supposed to do something. So I'll have my assistant, do something that normally would be my job, but we try to like pick up the pieces with each other.
Yeah, and then on days too, where, we'll have both appointments that day, we kind of block out time. So if I know he's in an appointment, for the next 2 hours, I'm available to take incoming calls, and we try to stagger it that way if possible. It's not always possible, but we do try to stagger it to allow one person a little bit of time to breathe and, focus on their meeting while the other person's handling any incoming leads. Yeah,
and there's days where like we know each other also, like we can tell when we're burnt out. So there's days where like she'll like just pick the pieces, like,
right.
I have a full day and she knows I need a day off, and then she'll just go take care of it. There's days I can tell like, hey, she's had a long few days. Like I'm gonna have a long day and do her days. And so that's kind of how we do it. But I think what's most important is time blocking is an art that and I'm going to be super honest when I say this, is I have tried to design a life around time blocking my whole career. Like, I have always, every year, been like, from this time to this time, I'm doing this time to this time, I'm doing this. 15 years of doing this business, I've never figured out the art. What I figured out is how to work hard and just try to figure out the best thing to do at that time. And that's the only way I've been able to manage it. I would love a life where I woke up at a certain time, went to the gym, called leads at a certain time. I mean, I give props to all the agents that can like literally do that every day. I mean, and I have no excuses for us, but I mean, if it's 9:45 and I'm supposed to be calling leads and I have a client who's got a fire that needs to be put out, it just doesn't feel proper for me to be sitting on the phone trying to get like new business when my client's appraisal is falling apart or whatever it may be. You know, it just doesn't seem to me like the thing. It just, my brain's still wanting to help them. And maybe that's why we get so many referrals, is because we put that much care into it.
Right.
But so
again, that's why I love these interviews, because that's everybody's stories. You are obviously successful, and that is what really, that's
it's a fire,
right?
Our days anymore, like over the last probably 2 months, we get so many leads a day at this point. I mean, I think we've got like 6 leads just today, and 4 of them came in like an hour. And so it's a fire drill, you know, and we're just like anybody else. We've got, you know, a doctor appointment today, or a vet appointment for our dog. And then I had appointments already scheduled. We got leads coming in, you know, we got personal life. We're trying to take time off. It's super overwhelming, but I feel like I mean, when we talk on a daily basis, we've realized now when we go back to that thermostat that to get to 100 transactions, to 200 transaction, it's not going to be hard as far as getting the leads. The leads are there for anybody. It's being able to emotionally knowing that many fires are happening in a day, and like actually going to find that like everything's not 100% perfect. Right. And I think now just emotionally being able to do that, is being able to handle that emotionally, is probably our biggest challenge.
Yep.
Awesome.
We're working on it every day.
Yeah.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to have you back. I know your team is growing, and down the road, and I know you're specifically making some strategic moves to grow from individual agents into a team, and maybe even into a larger team. So down the road, I'm going to invite you back, and we are going to talk about how do you go from having an individual agent business into a team. But for now, I just thank both of you so much for telling us your story, giving us your secrets. And, you know, in the last 60 seconds here of the Real Estate Podcast, do you have any parting comments to the listening audience who are real estate professionals and realtors just like you, that you just think they need to know right as we wrap up?
Yeah, I think one thing that we can probably both agree on is, you know, it's good to listen to everybody's story and how they got to where they are. But at the end of the day, you got to find out what's going to work for you and your personality. And I think goal setting is the biggest thing you can do, because then you can take what you're already good at and try to find avenues like we did, you know, to bring in additional, you know, revenue streams to your business. And I think if you know, can really focus on those goals and sit down and learn from others, I think that, you know, even working as a single agent, I mean, you can definitely double or probably triple your business by just spending time learning and setting those goals.
Yeah, that would be part of my advice as well. Is I listen to a ton of podcasts. Like I'm probably listening to a real estate podcast in my car every day. There's probably about 7 I listen to. And, you know, you just hear these people's journeys, and you just realize that you could all get to the same transaction or unit goal. But when you hear these people, I mean, you got some people who used to be teachers that, you know, they do like, you know, they do like seminars, and you have people who like to knock people's doors, and you have people that like to cold call, and then some people are great at open houses. You've got all these different avenues to go get a transaction. I think you just got to like figure out what's your personality. And as I'm getting older, I'm not fighting that as much. I used to fight it all the time. Like, I want to get business this way, until now I just realized like that's not who I am. I'm only older now. I'm not going to go back to, I'm not going to probably change my habits. So I just need to stay in my lane of what I like to do. And I'm accepting of that now. So I think that more people should just figure out what sings to them, like what makes them want to get up and go do real estate and just pick that. Don't just pick something because someone says it makes a good amount of money or it's just not going to be worth it.
Well, I got to go back to what you said at the beginning too, that don't, your mind, what you hear, like don't self-limit yourself. You were told it takes 6 months to get a deal. And later on, you're like, I wish they wouldn't have told me that because I probably could have done it faster. And I just heard that come out overall in your answers. Set your own path and make your own way and work hard and serve people, and you can be successful. So Agent 1 and Agent 2, I thank you very much for being here with us today. This has been awesome. And we're going to have you back down the road when you're even doing more and when you hit that 100, 200 transaction a year mark. And so just keep up the good work. And for all of you, the listening audience on the Real Estate Podcast, I'm Todd Sumney, the Chief Industry Officer for HomeSmart International. I appreciate all of you joining us here today, and we hope to see you back on future episodes as I continue this anonymous series, the anonymous interviews with top agents all around the country. And we'll see you next time around on The Real Estate. Take care.
Like what you're hearing on The Real Estate? Tell your friends about us. Tell them to check out all of our episodes on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. And don't forget to send any topics you want us to tackle to therealestate@homesmart.com.